Mr. President, is part of our determination and our orientation as an administration to continue to resolve those bad legacies that the previous administration left for us. One of these is the issue of non-payment of subsidies. And the President consciously, very patriotically, decided to approve payments for some of these subsidy claims.
Please allow the leader to make his point.
Mr. President, the 429 billion naira approved by the Federal Executive Council and endorsed here by the National Assembly, we know where the money is going to. We know who and who will collect the money. We know that these are people who helped the previous administration, but we never cared because our concern is the ordinary man. Mr. President, having said this, Mr. President,
so please, no hate speech. But yeah, but that has been sustained. But the one has sustained. No hate speech.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, having said this, let me say that nobody in the bureaucracy of this administration or government should sabotage efforts by the leadership of this country to resolve this kind of issues for the benefit of Nigerians. Where the Federal Executive Council and the National Assembly accepted to pay, all other people or offices are simply supposed to ensure that such payments were effected. Mr. President, I listened to the sponsor of the motion. I'm a co-sponsor. I believe that the issue of auditing by foreign auditing firms is a non-starter. It shouldn't have been in the first place. The DMO should therefore discontinue with this process because my understanding is the process that the DMO is going through is a clog, it's an encumbrance, it's a hurdle to the payment. So I believe that in our prayers, when we come to considering the prayers, we should ask that the federal government directs DMO to discontinue with this process so that the payments are made without further ado. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I believe that we are supposed to have a very free and merry Christmas and other festivities in January and elections in February without any hindrance that could happen from any strike or maybe complications arising from this non-payment. I would therefore, even for national security reasons, insist that these payments be made immediately. If we are able to resolve this, we would have solved so many issues. If, however, this kind of sabotage continues, God forbid, we could go back to the queues and nobody in this country, nobody should say anything about President Muhammadu Buhari not doing enough because he has played his part, the government has done its own, we have done our part. Somebody somewhere is stopping this. I don't want to input any motive. I don't want to input any motive, but whoever is stopping these payments must be someone who is interested in sabotaging this administration. I raise my case, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Senator Yahaya.
Support the position that has been put in this matter by the leader of the Senate. Because personally I thought that this issue had been resolved, has already been resolved. I am a member of the committee on Downstream. We went through this matter and really, did a responsive and a responsible audit of exactly what this situation is going to be. I thought somewhere, somehow, this thing had been paid since around June or July. But for it to come here now, and for it to be an object that could threaten the stability of the country going into the Christmas, New Year, and to the first election, whoever is behind the withholding of this payment does not mean this country well. Some people somewhere are trying to bring in cogs in the wheel of this country's progress. This issue has been resolved. It has gone through all the relevant authorities of this country. It has gone through the Ministry of Finance. It has gone through the Federal Executive Council. It has gone through this very responsible National Assembly. Committees finished it and we passed it here. I don't know what authority you need to release these funds so that it should be peace, and allow business to develop in this country. Therefore, Mr. President, I think that we should try as a Senate to investigate and find out who are the elements who are giving this government bad advice to withhold this payment, because it's something which is about 400 and something billion, Mr. President. If we had paid it at that time, it would not even have amounted to 500 billion. Now it's reaching 1 trillion. Now holding this one, say, into next year, is sabotage, not just to this government, but to the people of Nigeria. So I urge, Mr. President, that this Senate should put its weight and responsibility behind and urging the government to immediately, within the next 2 weeks, pay this matter off and reach an amicable solution so that this country is not put into unnecessary crisis. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, just put the
motion in this Senate lately than I've seen this particular one. I really do not know the direction of this motion, whom this motion is actually laying blame on. Because a matter that has received its normal process and procedure through the authorizing bodies, including the National Assembly for approval of appropriation. And the remaining duty is that of implementation. And all the agencies responsible for implementation are under the auspices of the executive branch, controlled by the head of government down to all the parties that are involved. And we come here and we are taking up a responsibility in National Assembly which has nothing to do with us, worrying about somebody within the system stopping the release of money. Over the period of this administration, we have all tried to cooperate on the basis of what has been approved by Parliament and what is being executed by the executive branch. And it's always a matter of attempting to make a substantial influence of the other system to ensure that we are on the same page. But here, someone somewhere is not doing his duty. And his duty doesn't fall under the purview of the National Assembly in this respect. So is it the DMO that is stopping this payment, or the central bank that is stopping the payment, or the Ministry of Finance that is stopping this payment? All these three bodies do not answer to National Assembly, other than the fact that as it pertains to approval of appropriation, we have duties over them. But regarding implementation of the law we pass and any other policy government has instituted, is the duty of the executive. And I don't see why we should come to Parliament to urge the executive to do its work.
And then we hear that somebody is actually frustrating the work of the executive branch. It cannot be from Parliament, certainly. So I think this motion ought to have articulated a more clear view and direction. And it should have brought documents, some of which are laid on the table this morning, to the hands of all members, so that we can understand the depth and the integrity, the intricacies involved in this whole matter. Let me not cast aspersions on the committee of Petroleum Downstream, but it appears to me that they assume that we know as much as they know in that committee. Whereas a lot of things they know happening within the petroleum sector is not known to we members who are not in that committee. So if they are presenting a motion regarding this kind of deep issues, they should make sure that documentation is comprehensive, is enough, and is given to us in time so that we can understand what they are saying and the direction to which they are going. Insofar as this matter relates to the general public, and those are the people we are here to represent, we will support those aspects that are going to affect them. i.e., if anybody is attempting to strangulate this nation on the basis of supply of petroleum products, we should immediately act on that basis. But if contractors are somewhere not being paid when approvals have been made, they should fight their business with the executive branch. And this idea that they should immediately suspend a contractual arrangement which has been made with international auditors, it does not work that way. Because once you have committed yourself to a contractual arrangement, you cannot just wave it by hand and say, look, discontinue it. The cost of the responsibility of that contract must still be borne by whoever entered that business with them. So we have to be very careful when we deal with international business. And I think engagement and roundtable on these issues are more important than just a passing of a prayer here in Parliament on matters of that nature. I rest my case.
All right, thank you. Senator Boroface.
My name is Senator Ibrahim Abdullahi Tambaba, and I represent Sokoto South Senatorial District. I rise to commend my chairman for being able to bring this matter before this August gathering. Mr. President, the issue about these liabilities is that in actual sense, some of us have reservation on even the issue of how these liabilities came into being. Because I can recall, in 2015, a supplementary bill was sent to the National Assembly, and our committee, the Appropriation Committee, deliberated on that, and we even made projection with regards to outstanding liabilities associated with subsidy up to December, even though the executive bill that came covered a period of up to September only. So we have reservation on how this issue even came about. So it is not a question of anybody wanting to sabotage the government. In actual sense, when one begins to ask who is supposed to be responsible for the settlement of this liability, it's the government. So the position is very clear. I know that our committee has been up and coming. In fact, we have been inviting critical stakeholders, including the CBN governor, the Minister of Finance. But as far as I can remember, all of them declined appearing before the committee. They appeared only through delegation. And that contributed to the position where we are today. As long as people are not held responsible for their shortcomings, we will continue, Mr. President, to have this problem. And I know the last time we met, we agreed that the marketers as well as the debt management office were going to meet and then report back to committee. That was supposed to be about 2 weeks back. And up till now, we have not heard from them, and nothing actually is coming out of it. So the situation is very simple. These are issues that were treated and dealt with by the National Assembly since June, and up till now, nothing has been done. As the executive, there is no question of sabotage, Mr. President. If there is any element of sabotage, it is the government itself that is sabotaging itself. Because the situation is, the issue of how this matter should be settled rests with those people that are in control of our finances in the executive arm of government. So the situation is such that now this motion that came into being actually came at the right time, because the marketers actually are frustrated. Our committee also frustrated because some agencies of government actually did not want to cooperate with the committee, and so that this matter can be put to rest once and for all. So, Mr. President, I pray that I commend the contribution of our chairman, and I support him fully, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ahmed.
First of all, let me align myself with the mover of the motion, and it is timely. Let me equally adopt my leader's, Senator Ahmed Law's submissions on this motion. I think we are drifting. Why I say we are drifting is that we are talking on a matter that is so important and that doesn't recognize which party you belong to or which region or where you come from. It's a matter that affects our life in its totality. And coming at this very critical time when we have the Christmas coming very soon, and immediately after we have an important national duty, which is the election, it's for us to be discussing on along party lines here. I think we should just avoid that. What we should be thinking now is, how do we mitigate, how do we engage proactively and avert the looming crisis that is facing us, which is the Christmas festivities and the national elections. Mr. President, there were so many allegations here and counter allegations, especially as to the figure. When this administration comes, nobody can even establish how much is the subsidy amount owed. So it involves a meticulous work to establish that. And when that was done, a figure of 429 billion was reached. This amount that Senator Volker, the leader, the minority leader, is talking about of 1 trillion, maybe he doesn't get the motion very well. The amount still remains 429 billion. But the claimants, that is the subsidy, the owners of these monies, are saying that because of the interest rate they are paying, now it's likely that the figure is going to be 1 trillion. So you can't say, you can't compare what was there as the total debt and what the claims of this owners of this money is. So let's be very clear here. And my own concern here is that let us face what is important here, which is how to avert the looming crisis. This Senate should do everything that is humanly possible to see that we proactively engage the marketers and the government so as to come to a solution. Let us not forget that we are battling, we have security challenges in this country, part of which this petroleum and the diesel that we use are also used in our operational theater. And if we don't take that serious, it will equally affect our security challenges, situation there. So please and please, let us calm down, let us reverse the narration. Let us not go to this, the motion, as far as I'm concerned, is very bipartisan, and we know that this we have situation in our heart. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Aban. And essentially, I think the summary is that government should be able to keep to its agreement with people, not just the oil marketers, but once we reach an agreement, that agreement has to be kept, and everybody should be able to honor the agreement. More importantly is that the oil marketers and all those that are being owed now are employers of so many Nigerians, and if these were not paid, then the jobs of those Nigerians are put in jeopardy. And of course, the banks that gave them money may not be in the position to give money to other sectors or other people. So the implication is quite huge for us as a country. So I join the rest of you in saying that government needs to honor this obligation and make sure that these monies will be paid such that we'll have sufficient fair supply, especially as we go into the Christmas, the New Year, and the elections. And I do hope that we don't need to overflog this matter, that a word they say is enough for the wise. So having said this, distinguished colleagues, we'll quickly go to the prayers. Prayer 1, urge the oil marketers to rescind their 7 days ultimatum decision to allow federal government a little more time to look into these demands. Those in support of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, urge the federal government to, as a matter of utmost urgency, direct all concerned agencies to immediately pay the subsidy arrears as approved by the Federal Executive Council and passed by the National Assembly within 2 weeks. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3, urge the federal government to engage marketers and agree on all outstanding liabilities to put an end to all oil subsidy claims. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senior Leader. Additional prayer. Yeah.